In this video, I'm going to be teaching on focus breathing. What is it? How do you know if your lens suffers from it? And then a simple solution on how to fix the problem coming up. Hey, what's up guys, and welcome into the channel where I post weekly videos on how you can improve your landscape photography through in-field and post-processing tutorials, as well as gear reviews. So if you're into landscape photography at all, consider subscribing to this channel. Now in this video specifically, we're talking focus breathing, and really this idea of this video and this explanation came up from a previous video that I shot in the field from Great Smoky Mountains National Park on focus stacking. And if you want to see that video, you can click or tap your screen right here on the card that's showing up, and that'll take you through the process of how to focus stack an image for tack sharp images every single time. But a lot of the comments that started coming up were, what if your lens suffers from focus breathing? Does that impact the end focus stack? And I mean, overall, yes, you can stack images that suffer slightly from focus breathing, but how do you solve focus breathing so you don't have to go through that process? And how do you know if your lens actually has focus breathing? That's what we're focusing on today. Let's start with, what is focus breathing exactly? Well, what happens in focus breathing is that when you set your camera up on a tripod and you use a lens like a zoom lens like this 70-200 f4 from Sony, what happens is when you're focus stacking, you're usually zoomed to a specific point. Now, as the lens sets on that specific point, on here it's 70 millimeters, you can tell if your lens suffers from focus breathing, because as you focus your lens, what happens to the overall image is every single spot of focus that you focus to throughout the frame in focus stacking, your composition alters slightly. So that may occur in the edges becoming slightly more zoomed out, that overall affects your focus stack. That's probably the best way to test in the field if your lens actually suffers from focus breathing, is going through those focus stages throughout the image and then inspecting each photo's composition to see if that composition and the edges have changed just a little bit. Most oftentimes you'll see this as more space on the edges of your composition being slightly more zoomed out as that focus breathes a little bit. And why this occurs is your lens elements inside the lens slowly get further and further away from that camera sensor and causes the focus breathing, even though you're not altering the zoom ring at all. Now, another question you may have is, does this happen with zoom lenses and prime lenses also? And the answer is yes. It doesn't matter if your lens is zoom or prime, it can happen to both. And that is because that inside each lens, whether that is a zoom or a prime, you have several lens elements that make up the lens itself, and even several pieces of glass that occur inside of each lens. And depending on if this is like a wide angle or a telephoto lens, what happens is that lens and the glass and the elements inside that lens interact differently as you refocus your lens. So a great way to see this in action is when you have your lens set on a specific zoom. I'll stay on 70 millimeters. You can actually twist your focus ring and see how that lens is altering inside the barrel. You can look really closely inside the barrel and actually see the elements inside this lens change, get wider, get smaller, zoom in or out just slightly to achieve different areas of focus. Now, by this point, you may have tested your lens in the field, you know you have focus breathing, and you're like, well, great, now I understand focus breathing. How do I actually fix the problem? Well, if the problem is actually determined by space between your lens and the sensor, the solution is easily putting more space between that so that the focus breathing is minimized as much as possible. The cheapest way to do this is to buy a cheap extension tube set off of Amazon. Now, I've linked extension tube sets below in the video description for Sony, Canon, Nikon, Fuji and Panasonic, so you can easily find that no matter what kind of camera that you shoot with. But basically, if you add more space in between the sensor and the lens, it's going to minimize and almost eliminate that focus breathing as much as possible. But I will urge you to be careful when you're buying and using extension tubing, that sometimes if you're using the focus to infinity spot on your lens, extension tubing can slightly alter that and actually impact the clarity of that focus to infinity. So be really careful when you're inspecting. Zoom in on your LCD screen to make sure that all the elements within your image are perfectly in focus when you're using extension tubing, and be extra careful, double check everything. But adding that space is what's going to solve this problem for you, so you can get tack sharp images through specific focal planes and then focus stack these in together. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. If you like this video and you found it helpful, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Hey, if you want more questions answered on landscape photography, comment with those below so that I can create videos for you on your questions so that we can solve those together. And then lastly, if you want to see that video on focus stacking in the field in Great Smoky Mountains National Park, click or tap your screen right here. If you want to see another video from this channel, click or tap your screen right here. To easily subscribe, click or tap your screen in the top corner of this video as well. Thanks so much, guys. Can't wait to see you in the next video. Keep shooting.